The nude has been a central motif in human artistic expression, serving as a bridge between the physical and the ideal. From the earliest cave paintings to the masterpieces of the Renaissance, the depiction of the human body in its natural state has reflected cultural values, religious beliefs, and evolving aesthetic ideals. This exploration traces the nude's journey through time, beginning in the Upper Paleolithic period, where it first emerged as a symbol of fertility and spiritual connection. The Venus of Willendorf, a 28,000-year-old figurine from Austria, exemplifies this early fascination with the female form, its exaggerated curves emphasizing vitality and abundance. Such representations were not merely artistic, but deeply rooted in the practical and symbolic needs of prehistoric societies. As civilizations advanced, the nude took on new meanings. In ancient Egypt, the human form was idealized within a rigid hierarchical framework, with figures often depicted in stylized frontal poses. Yet, the Greeks redefined the nude as a celebration of human potential, blending realism with idealism. The Parthenon sculptures, for instance, captured the perfection of the male form, embodying the Greek ethos of balance, proportion, and harmony. This classical ideal was later adopted and adapted by the Romans, who used the nude to convey power and imperial grandeur, as seen in the dynamic poses of the Laocoon group. The medieval period saw a shift towards symbolic representation, with the nude often subsumed into religious narratives. However, the human body retained its significance, particularly in illuminated manuscripts and sculptures, where it conveyed theological messages. The Renaissance marked a revival of classical principles, driven by humanism and a renewed interest in anatomy. Artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci dissected cadavers to achieve unprecedented accuracy, as seen in Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling and da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. This era transformed the nude into a vehicle for exploring human anatomy, emotion, and the divine, bridging the ancient past with a new intellectual and artistic awakening. Throughout these periods, the nude has remained a mirror of societal values, evolving from spiritual iconography to a medium for philosophical inquiry. Its enduring presence underscores the human desire to understand and celebrate the body as both a vessel of beauty and a testament to our shared heritage. The Baroque period reimagined the nude through dramatic movement and chiaroscuro, as seen in Caravaggio's Tenebrism and Bernini's dynamic sculptures. By the 19th century, Romanticism emphasized emotional intensity, while realism sought naturalistic accuracy. Modern movements like Cubism and Surrealism deconstructed the nude's form, reflecting shifting cultural priorities. Throughout, the nude remained a lens for exploring identity, power, and the human condition, adapting to each era's intellectual and artistic currents. The Upper Paleolithic period, spanning roughly 40,000 to 10,000 years ago, marks a pivotal era in human artistic expression. During this time, early humans began to create art that reflected not only their immediate surroundings, but also complex symbolic meanings. Cave paintings, carvings, and portable artifacts from this period reveal a sophisticated understanding of form, perspective, and narrative. The depiction of the human form, particularly the nude figure, appears frequently in these artworks, suggesting a deep cultural and possibly ritualistic significance. These representations were not merely aesthetic. They likely served functional roles within social or spiritual contexts, such as storytelling, identity, or communication of shared beliefs. The use of the nude figure may have been tied to themes of fertility, power, or the human connection to nature, reflecting the interplay between human agency and the environment. While the exact symbolic meanings remain debated, the prevalence of such imagery underscores its importance in prehistoric societies. The technical skill evident in these works such as the use of shading and dynamic poses, indicates a level of cognitive and artistic development that challenges earlier assumptions about the capabilities of early humans. As research continues, these artifacts offer invaluable insights into the minds and cultures of our ancestors, bridging the gap between the ancient past and modern understanding. The nude figure in Upper Paleolithic art often emphasized fertility and vitality, as seen in the iconic Venus figurines of Europe and Eurasia. These small, stylized representations, carved from stone, bone, or antler, typically featured exaggerated female forms with prominent breasts, bellies, and pubic areas, suggesting a symbolic association with reproductive power. While their exact purpose remains debated, ranging from ritual objects to markers of social status or talismans, scholars note their widespread distribution, indicating a shared cultural significance. Similarly, depictions of human figures in cave art, such as those in Lascaux or Altamira, often incorporated abstract or schematic bodies, sometimes combined with animal forms, reflecting early attempts to convey narrative or spiritual concepts. The use of natural pigments like ochre and charcoal, along with techniques like engraving and deep carving, highlights the technical skill of these artists. Regional variations, such as the abstract human figures of Blombos Cave in South Africa, or the dynamic, almost kinetic poses of figures in the Denisova Cave, further illustrate the diversity of expression during this period. These works not only prefigure later artistic traditions, but also underscore the cognitive and symbolic capacities of early humans, bridging the gap between functional tools and complex cultural narratives. The Venus of Willendorf, a small limestone figurine discovered in Austria around 28,000 years ago, stands as one of the most iconic artifacts of the Upper Paleolithic period. Unlike the more naturalistic cave paintings and carvings of the era, this statuette embodies a distinct focus on symbolic representation. Its exaggerated features, rounded hips, prominent breasts, and a large stomach suggest an intentional emphasis on fertility, a theme deeply tied to the survival of human communities during the last glacial period. The figure's face is largely absent, with only minimal detailing, possibly to universalize its role as a symbol of motherhood and abundance. This abstraction may reflect a cultural need to prioritize reproductive health in an environment where food scarcity and harsh climatic conditions made fertility a critical concern. The Venus of Willendorf's compact size, roughly 11 centimeters tall, implies portability, suggesting it could have been carried or used in ritual contexts. Its creation during a time of environmental stress underscores the significance of fertility as both a personal and communal aspiration. While scholars debate its exact purpose, whether as a talisman, a religious icon, or a representation of an ancestral figure, the figurine's enduring presence in prehistoric art highlights the centrality of female fertility in early human societies. The absence of other features, such as hands or feet, further reinforces its role as a symbol rather than a portrait of an individual. This artifact also marks a shift in artistic expression from the dynamic, lifelike depictions of animals and humans in cave art to more abstract, symbolic forms. The Venus of Willendorf's emphasis on fertility aligns with broader themes in Upper Paleolithic art, where representations often carried spiritual or practical significance. Its discovery in a layer of sediment from the Danube Valley, alongside other tools and artifacts, situates it within a cultural context where such symbols may have been used to invoke protection, ensure prosperity, or honor the cycles of life. The figurine's enduring legacy lies in its ability to convey complex ideas about human existence, resilience, reproduction, and the interplay between nature and culture. As one of the earliest known examples of symbolic art, it bridges the gap between functional tools and the emerging conceptual frameworks of early human societies. Its simplicity, paired with its profound symbolic weight, continues to inspire inquiry into the motivations and beliefs of our prehistoric ancestors. The Venus of Willendorf's discovery in the Danube Valley's Upper Paleolithic layer underscores its integration into a material culture prioritizing survival and spiritual practices. Its placement alongside tools suggests ritual use, possibly as an amulet or offering. The figurine's exaggerated forms reflect a symbolic language tied to reproductive cycles, emphasizing humanity's early attempts to grasp and influence nature's rhythms through art. Such figurines, often small and portable, suggest a cultural emphasis on fertility and the cyclical rhythms of life, possibly tied to ritual practices or domestic roles. The absence of facial features in many examples, including the Venus of Willendorf, may indicate a focus on the reproductive organs, underscoring their symbolic significance. Beyond individual artifacts, the broader context of prehistoric figurines reveals a complex interplay between art, spirituality, and social structure. Discoveries such as the Löwenmensch, Lion Man of the Swabian Jura, a hybrid creature blending human and animal traits, hint at early symbolic thought and the attribution of supernatural qualities to composite forms. These objects likely served as mediators between the human and spiritual realms, embodying beliefs about nature, ancestry, or cosmology. The materials used, stone, bone, antler, reflect the resources available to these communities, while their craftsmanship demonstrates a mastery of form and intent. The cultural contexts in which these figurines were created also point to social hierarchies and shared beliefs. For instance, the presence of multiple figurines in a single site might indicate communal rituals or the veneration of specific deities. Conversely, the isolation of certain artifacts suggests personal devotion or individual agency. These objects were not merely decorative. They were imbued with meaning, serving as conduits for communication with the divine or as markers of identity within a group. Scholars continue to grapple with the motivations behind their creation. Were they tools for fertility magic, status symbols, or expressions of a collective worldview? The lack of written records compels reliance on material evidence, yet even this is subject to interpretation. What is clear is that these figurines represent a profound attempt to articulate the human condition, desire, power, and the mysteries of life through the lens of a prehistoric imagination. Their endurance in the archaeological record underscores their significance, inviting modern audiences to reflect on the continuity of human creativity and belief. Variation in size and form across regions suggests regional artistic traditions and functional diversity. Some figurines, like the Venus of Willendorf, emphasize fertility, while others depict elongated figures, hinting at symbolic or ritualistic roles. Their placement in domestic or ritual contexts underscores their multifaceted significance, bridging personal and communal practices. The transition from prehistoric figurines to the artistic traditions of the ancient Near East marks a pivotal shift in how human bodies were represented, particularly in relation to nudity. By around 3500 BCE, the rise of urban centers in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Levant introduced new social structures and religious practices that redefined the symbolic meanings of the human form. While early figurines often emphasized fertility and domesticity through stylized, clothed forms, the ancient Near East began to explore nudity as a marker of both ritual purity and elite status. In Mesopotamian art, for instance, the depiction of nude figures emerged in contexts tied to divine authority and cosmic order. The standard of Ur, a 2600 BCE artifact from the Sumerian city of Ur, features reliefs that blend scenes of warfare and ritual with figures in varying states of dress. While not explicitly nude, these reliefs suggest a growing interest in the body as a symbol of power. Similarly, in later periods, Assyrian and Babylonian reliefs often portrayed kings and priests in elaborate attire. Yet certain ceremonial contexts, such as funerary art or depictions of divine beings, began to incorporate nudity as a sign of transcendence. For example, the lion hunt of Darius, circa 515 BCE, showcases the king's physicality. But it is the absence of clothing that underscores his role as a divine intermediary between gods and mortals. In religious practices, nudity took on specific ritual significance. In some traditions, the shedding of clothing symbolized the shedding of worldly attachments, a concept echoed in later Jewish and Christian rituals. For instance, the Hebrew Bible references instances where individuals, such as Abraham or Moses, experienced moments of vulnerability or divine revelation that involved partial or complete nudity. These moments were not merely physical, but carried spiritual weight, reflecting a broader cultural tendency to associate the body with sacred narratives. Social hierarchies also influenced the representation of nudity. In elite contexts, nudity could denote status, as seen in the depiction of royal figures in art, where the absence of clothing emphasized their connection to the divine or their role as leaders. Conversely, in communal or ritual settings, nudity might signify collective purity, as in purification rites or initiation ceremonies. This duality, where the body could be both a site of sacred power and a symbol of communal identity, marked a significant evolution from the more utilitarian representations of earlier figurines. Thus, the ancient Near East's artistic engagement with nudity was deeply intertwined with its religious and social frameworks. Whether as a marker of divine authority, a symbol of ritual purity, or an assertion of elite status, the human body became a canvas for expressing the complexities of human experience within a rapidly evolving civilization. The Burney Relief, a 2nd millennium BCE gypsum sculpture from Mesopotamia, stands as a striking example of how ancient artisans blended human and divine attributes to convey spiritual significance. Discovered in the 19th century and now housed in the British Museum, this votive figure depicts a woman with an elaborate headdress, outstretched arms, and expansive wings, her form rendered in intricate detail. Though the exact date remains debated, scholars generally place it in the early 2nd millennium BCE, a period marked by the flourishing of temple cults and the veneration of deities like Ishtar, the goddess of love, war, and fertility. The sculpture's association with Ishtar is widely accepted, though the absence of explicit inscriptions means interpretations rely on contextual clues and artistic conventions. The figure's hybrid form, part human, part celestial, reflects the Mesopotamian tendency to merge divine and mortal elements. Her wings, a symbol of heavenly power, and her headdress, likely representing royal or divine status, underscore her role as a celestial being. Yet her human features, her serene expression, the delicate folds of her robe anchor her in the earthly realm, creating a duality that resonates with the religious practices of the time. This duality is central to understanding the relief's purpose. As a votive offering, it was likely placed in a temple to invoke the goddess's protection or favor. The act of devotion, represented here through the sculpture's creation, bridges the gap between the human and the divine, a theme central to Mesopotamian religion. The craftsmanship of the Burney relief also reveals the cultural priorities of its time. The use of gypsum, a material common in Mesopotamian art, suggests a focus on accessibility and durability, while the meticulous detailing of her garments and accessories highlights the importance of visual symbolism. The figure's posture, arms raised in what appears to be a gesture of blessing or invocation, echoes the iconography of other votive figures, reinforcing the idea that such artifacts served as intermediaries between worshippers and the gods. This interplay between the human and the divine is not unique to the Burney relief, but reflects broader Mesopotamian artistic traditions. While some figures, like those depicting nude deities, emphasized raw power or fertility, others, such as this relief, used adornment and hybrid forms to convey complex spiritual narratives. The Burney relief thus encapsulates the Mesopotamian worldview, where the divine was both transcendent and intimately connected to human life, a balance achieved through art that merged the tangible and the celestial. The use of nudity in ancient Near Eastern art was deeply symbolic, often serving as a bridge between the human and the divine. In Mesopotamian contexts, nude figures frequently appeared in depictions of deities, particularly those associated with fertility, such as Inanna, later Ishtar, or her counterpart, Astarte. These representations emphasized a direct, unmediated connection to the divine, stripping away the complexities of human form to evoke a sense of primordial power. Nudity here was not merely aesthetic, but ritualistic, reflecting the belief that the divine could manifest in forms that transcended conventional boundaries. For instance, the Stele of Hammurabi, while not depicting nudity, underscores the cultural emphasis on divine authority through monumental, almost godlike figures, suggesting that the human form was often reconfigured to align with cosmic order. Ritualistic practices further intertwined nudity with acts of devotion. Votive offerings, such as the Burney relief, often featured nude figures engaged in gestures of supplication, symbolizing the devotee's surrender to divine will. These acts were not passive but participatory, with nudity signifying vulnerability and humility, qualities deemed essential for accessing the divine. In fertility cults, nude depictions of deities were linked to agricultural cycles, where the body became a metaphor for the earth's regenerative power. The naked form, devoid of societal constraints, mirrored the raw, untamed forces of nature, reinforcing the deity's role as a life-giver. The connection between nudity and divine favor extended to religious ceremonies, where participants might adopt nude or semi-nude postures to align themselves with sacred energies. Texts from the Etana database, which houses digitized ancient Near Eastern texts, suggest that rituals involving nudity were common in temple contexts, serving to purify the body and mind as a prerequisite for communion with the divine. Such practices underscored the idea that the divine was not confined to human form, but could be accessed through physical and symbolic gestures. By stripping away the layers of societal identity, nudity became a conduit for spiritual transcendence, bridging the mortal and the immortal. This interplay between the corporeal and the cosmic remains a defining feature of ancient Near Eastern art, where the naked body was both a vessel and a testament to the divine's omnipresence. The Etana database's cuneiform texts further reveal that nudity in rituals often accompanied offerings or processions, symbolizing the shedding of ego to attain spiritual clarity. Such practices documented in temple archives reflect a broader Near Eastern worldview, where the body's vulnerability became a conduit for divine communion, bridging the mortal and the sacred. Intellectual erudition began to be viewed with less prestige as artists sought greater equality with intellectuals versed in the liberal arts. France played a key role in institutionalizing the model and establishing a stage of significant order and stability. Artworks often depicted gods, pharaohs, and mythological scenes, emphasizing order, permanence, and the cosmic balance of Ma'at. The palette of Nama, for instance, symbolized the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt through its intricate imagery of the pharaoh as both a mortal ruler and a divine figure. The idea of perfection was more intensely cultivated as the artist's highest goal. The materials and techniques used reflected the Egyptians' reverence for the eternal. A controversy emerged among members of the Académie, influencing artistic attitudes for much of the century. Gold, in particular, was believed to represent the flesh of the gods, while blue pigment, derived from lapis lazuli, symbolized the sky and divine protection. The Royal Academy of Arts was founded in 1768 with a mission to establish a school of design for students in the arts. The history of Danish art shows less tension between academic art and other styles compared to other countries. Artistic conventions such as frontalism and hierarchical scaling were not arbitrary but rooted in religious symbolism. Venice emerged as a significant center, launching traditions like urban views and capriccios. The academic system faced challenges from intellectuals linked to the Enlightenment. Diderot supported aspects of the academic ideal, including the hierarchy of genres. A campaign was launched against the teaching of the Academy, identifying it as a symbol of the Ancien Régime. The extinction of the old schools was temporary, as a committee for the arts was subsequently organized. Tomb paintings and pottery often included scenes of labor, feasts, and family life, blending the mundane with the sacred. These depictions were not merely record-keeping, but acts of devotion, ensuring the deceased's continued existence in the afterlife. Even the placement of artifacts in tombs, such as food, tools, and amulets, was guided by religious beliefs, reflecting the Egyptians' conviction that the afterlife required material sustenance and protection. Despite its grandeur, ancient Egyptian art was not without complexity. The exact meanings of certain symbols and iconography remain debated among scholars, highlighting the nuances of a culture that valued both clarity and mystery. Yet, through its enduring forms and spiritual depth, Egyptian art remains a testament to a civilization that sought to immortalize its gods, rulers, and beliefs in the face of time's passage. The depiction of the human form in ancient Egyptian art was deeply intertwined with spiritual and ritualistic practices, yet the nude figure occupied a unique and often enigmatic space within this tradition. Unlike the idealized, stylized representations of pharaohs and gods that dominated much of Egyptian iconography, the nude was reserved for specific contexts, often carrying profound symbolic weight. One such instance was the portrayal of deities like Hathor, the goddess of love and fertility, who was frequently depicted in a nude form, her body adorned with floral motifs and sacred symbols. This choice was not merely aesthetic, but theological, emphasizing her connection to life, rebirth, and the cyclical nature of existence, central tenets of Egyptian cosmology. Similarly, the nude figure appeared in funerary contexts, where it served as a bridge between the mortal and the divine. In tomb paintings and reliefs, the deceased were sometimes shown in a state of undress, a visual metaphor for shedding the burdens of earthly life and embracing the purity of the afterlife. This imagery aligned with the belief in Ma'at, the principle of cosmic order, which dictated that the soul's journey to the afterlife required both physical and spiritual transformation. The nude form, stripped of worldly adornments, became a vessel for this transition, symbolizing the soul's liberation from the material world. Yet, the nude in Egyptian art was not always explicitly sexual. While some figures, such as the goddesses Sekhmet or Bastet, were depicted with overtly erotic features, their nudity often carried dual meanings. In the case of Sekhmet, her fierce, lion-headed form combined elements of destruction and healing, reflecting the duality inherent in many Egyptian deities. The nude body in these instances was a medium through which the divine could manifest, embodying both power and vulnerability. This duality was also evident in the portrayal of pharaohs in ritualistic poses, where their semi-nude forms, often depicted in the act of offering or worship, underscored their role as intermediaries between the human and divine realms. The spiritual significance of the nude extended beyond individual deities and into the broader framework of Egyptian cosmology. The Nile, a life-giving force, was often symbolized through nude figures in art, their forms echoing the river's fluidity and the fertility it bestowed. In this way, the nude became a universal symbol of renewal and regeneration, a concept that permeated Egyptian religious thought. Even in secular contexts, such as the depiction of laborers or dancers, the nude form was imbued with a sense of sacred purpose, reflecting the belief that all human activity was part of a larger cosmic order. Thus, the nude in Egyptian art was not a mere representation of the body, but a complex symbol woven into the fabric of spiritual and ritualistic practices. It served as a conduit for divine power, a marker of transformation, and a testament to the interconnectedness of the physical and metaphysical worlds. The Renaissance marked a profound shift in European art, as societies moved from medieval sacred traditions toward a renewed appreciation of classical antiquity. This transformation was driven by secularization, which diminished the Catholic Church's dominance and allowed profane art rooted in classical ideals to flourish. Artists began to view their craft not merely as technical labor, but as a means of intellectual and cultural expression, challenging the guild system's rigid structure. Guilds, which had long governed artistic production, were increasingly seen as outdated, while artists sought recognition as intellectuals akin to those versed in the liberal arts. This shift elevated painting and sculpture to the status of disciplines that could be theorized, paralleling the literary and poetic traditions. However, this newfound intellectual prestige came with uncertainty, as artists relied on individual patrons rather than the security of guild networks. France played a pivotal role in institutionalizing this new artistic paradigm. While Italy pioneered the model, France refined it into a system of order and stability. The Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture, founded in 1648, aimed to elevate artists from craftsmen to gentlemen engaged in liberal arts. King Louis XIV later reorganized the institution in 1661, transforming it into a state-controlled entity that glorified absolutism and established France as Europe's cultural hub. The Academy's emphasis on intellectual rigor and tradition shaped academic art, with Italy remaining a key reference. The battle of styles between Rubens and Poussin epitomized this tension, as artists debated whether art should prioritize color or line, emotion or intellect. These debates persisted into the 19th century, influencing movements like neoclassicism and romanticism. The French model spread across Europe, inspiring academies in cities like Nuremberg, Antwerp, and Berlin. In smaller nations, such as Denmark, the Royal Academy of Fine Arts fostered a national school of art, reducing reliance on foreign masters. Meanwhile, the model expanded to America, with institutions like the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts and Brazil's Imperial Academy of Fine Arts. Yet, the academic system faced challenges. Enlightenment thinkers criticized its rigidity, arguing it stifled creativity by prioritizing ancient models over individual expression. The French Revolution further disrupted the academies, as revolutionary leaders dismantled institutions tied to the Ancien Regime. Despite these upheavals, the academic tradition endured, shaping art's trajectory for centuries. Its legacy lies in its ability to standardize artistic practice while adapting to evolving cultural and intellectual currents. Intellectual erudition began to be seen as outdated and socially unworthy, as artists began to desire equality with intellectuals in the liberal arts. This work exemplifies the Greek commitment to harmonizing art with nature, as Polykleitos codified his techniques in the Canon, a treatise outlining ratios and proportions that governed the idealized human body. Painting and sculpture began to be considered as subjects amenable to theoretical analysis. Polykleitos's sculpture adheres to the canon's principles, which dictated that the human body should be divided into specific proportional segments, with each part relating to the whole through precise ratios. For instance, the statue's torso is structured so that the width of the shoulders equals the length of the arm, creating a sense of symmetry and equilibrium. First stage of significant order and stability, the Doryphoros embodies these ideals, its figure poised in a dynamic yet balanced stance that captures both movement and stillness. Lacked a formal educational structure. This technique, which gives the figure a lifelike quality, was achieved through careful calculation of weight distribution and muscle tension. The Doryphoros' spear, held in the right hand, further emphasizes this balance, its placement reinforcing the statue's stability, establishing a strong association with the state contributing to France's emergence as a major cultural center. By applying mathematical ratios to the human body, sculptors sought to reveal an underlying order in the natural world, a concept that would later influence Renaissance artists, reaching a high level of rigor, comprehensiveness, and formalism. The idea of perfection was intensely cultivated as an artistic goal with the Italian. High Renaissance serving as a key model, a branch was established in Rome. The Doryphoros, or spear-bearer, stands as a quintessential embodiment of classical Greek ideals, encapsulating the harmonious interplay of physical perfection and moral excellence. Created by the sculptor Polykleitos in the 5th century BCE, this bronze statue, though lost to time, has been immortalized through Roman marble copies. Its form is a testament to the Greek pursuit of kalokagathia, a concept that transcended mere aesthetics to signify the cultivation of a well-rounded individual, balanced in body, mind, and spirit. The statue's dynamic yet poised stance, with one foot forward and the other back, captures the tension between motion and stability, reflecting the Greeks' belief in the unity of opposites. This duality is not merely visual, but philosophical, mirroring the cosmos' own equilibrium of forces, order and chaos, rest and movement. At the heart of the Doryphoros' significance lies its adherence to the canon, a systematic approach to proportion developed by Polykleitos. This mathematical framework ensured that every element of the statue, its musculature, posture, and facial expression, aligned with an idealized human form. The contrapposto stance, where the weight shifts onto one leg, creates a sense of vitality and naturalism, bridging the gap between static sculpture and living motion. Such technical mastery was not an end in itself, but a means to convey deeper truths about human existence. The statue's serene expression, balanced yet alert, suggests a mind attuned to both the physical world and the moral order, embodying the ideal of a kalos kagathos, a person who harmonizes beauty with virtue. The Doryphoros also serves as a microcosm of the cosmos, reflecting the Greeks' conviction that the universe itself was governed by rational proportions. The statue's symmetry and balance mirror the celestial order, a belief rooted in the works of philosophers like Pythagoras, who saw mathematical relationships underlying all natural phenomena. By crafting a figure that adheres to these principles, Polykleitos elevated sculpture from mere representation to a form of cosmic inquiry. The spear-bearer's outstretched arm and poised stance evoke a sense of readiness, as if the statue embodies the ideal of a citizen prepared to uphold justice and civic duty, a reflection of the polis values. In this way, the Doryphoros transcends its material form to become a symbol of the Greek worldview. It is a celebration of human potential where physical perfection and moral integrity are inseparable. The statue's enduring legacy lies in its ability to distill the essence of classical ideals into a single, resonant image, one that continues to inspire reflections on the relationship between art, philosophy, and the human condition. The resources listed span a wide range of Jewish cultural and historical materials, offering access to music, art, genealogy, and educational tools. For Jewish music, several platforms provide recordings and sheet music, including Yiddish theater pieces and liturgical works. These collections often include both digital images and searchable databases, with some materials dating back to the early 20th century. The focus on nusach, or traditional liturgical melodies, highlights efforts to preserve and share Jewish musical traditions for religious and cultural practice. Art and historical resources include galleries of Jewish portraits from the colonial and antebellum periods, as well as collections of Judaica and ceremonial objects. The Pomegranate Guild of Judaic Needlework emphasizes passing down needlework traditions, linking Jewish heritage to American democratic ideals. Meanwhile, the Museum of Jewish Heritage houses over 30,000 artifacts, reflecting Jewish life across millennia. These materials often blend art, history, and religious symbolism, offering insights into Jewish identity and ritual. Genealogical resources are extensive, with sites like Polish Roots and Sephardic genealogy databases providing records of births, deaths, and marriages. These archives trace Jewish communities across Europe and the Americas, including those affected by the Holocaust. The New York Public Library's digital collections also include Jewish history, with photographs, manuscripts, and ship manifests detailing immigration patterns. Such resources aid in reconstructing family histories and understanding diasporic movements. Community and educational initiatives focus on inclusivity and heritage. Organizations like the Institute for Judaism, Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity address LGBTQ+ issues within Jewish contexts, while JOFA and JQY advocate for gender equality and support LGBTQ youth. The Lookstein Center and Melton Center provide teaching materials, lesson plans, and journals to enhance Jewish education. These efforts emphasize both traditional and modern interpretations of Jewish life. The AJA and JDC archives preserve historical records of Jewish communities, including political, economic, and religious data. These archives include photographs, oral histories, and manuscripts, offering a comprehensive view of Jewish experiences. Similarly, the Synagogues 360 project maps synagogues globally, combining historical and architectural details with current usage. Overall, these resources collectively serve as a bridge between past and present, preserving Jewish traditions while adapting them to contemporary needs. They cater to scholars, educators, and individuals seeking to deepen their understanding of Jewish heritage, ensuring its continuity through accessible and diverse materials. The practice of athletic nudity in ancient Greece was deeply intertwined with the cultural values of physical excellence, civic duty, and the celebration of the human form. Music resources, sound resources, music, Yiddish, images, manuscripts, and primary sources. This practice was not merely practical but symbolic, reflecting the Greeks' belief in the body as a vessel for divine perfection. Competing nude was an act of devotion to Zeus, the patron of athletics, and a demonstration of the athlete's mastery over their own physique. The exposed body became a canvas for the ideals of symmetry, strength, and vitality, which were central to Greek identity. Beyond the arena, nudity was a defining feature of public life. Citizens gathered in gymnasia and palaestrae, spaces for exercise, education, and social interaction, where they trained naked to cultivate both physical and moral discipline. These institutions were not just about fitness, they were hubs of intellectual and civic engagement, where young men learned rhetoric, philosophy, and the virtues of self-control. The nude body, in this context, symbolized freedom from societal constraints, a natural state that aligned with the Greek concept of arete, excellence in all aspects of life. By embracing nudity in these communal settings, Greeks reinforced their commitment to collective ideals over individual modesty. Artistic representations of the nude further cemented its cultural significance. Sculptors like Polykleitos and Praxiteles idealized the human form, creating statues that embodied the harmony and proportion Greeks revered. These works were not static, they were meant to inspire awe and contemplation, reflecting the belief that the body was a manifestation of the divine. The nude figure thus became a universal symbol of human potential, a reminder of the balance between physical and intellectual pursuits. This celebration of the nude was not without its complexities. While it was a mark of status and virtue for citizens, it also highlighted social hierarchies. Only free men could participate in athletics, and the naked body was a site of both pride and exclusion. Yet, the enduring legacy of this practice lies in its ability to encapsulate the Greek ethos, a relentless pursuit of excellence rooted in the belief that the human body, when nurtured and honored, could achieve near-divine perfection. Through athletics, public life, and art, the nude became a powerful emblem of cultural identity, bridging the physical and the philosophical in ways that continue to resonate. The legacy of Greek artistic ideals, particularly the celebration of the human form, found profound resonance in the Roman and Hellenistic worlds. Roman artists, while often emulating Greek techniques and subject matter, infused their works with a distinct emphasis on realism and individuality. The nude became a central motif, not merely as an idealized form, but as a symbol of power, status, and civic virtue. Roman sculptors, for instance, adapted Greek statues of gods and heroes, reimagining them with more grounded human expressions. This shift reflected Rome's pragmatic approach to art, which balanced admiration for Greek aesthetics with a desire to assert its own cultural identity. The use of the nude in Roman portraiture, particularly in the laconic style, highlighted the subject's individuality, blending classical ideals with a focus on personal dignity. Hellenistic art, emerging in the centuries following Alexander the Great's conquests, served as a bridge between the classical Greek tradition and the broader cultural synthesis of the Eastern Mediterranean. Unlike the restrained harmony of classical Greek art, Hellenistic works embraced dynamic movement, emotional intensity, and intricate detail. The Dying Gaul and the Laocoon group exemplify this era's fascination with dramatic tension and psychological depth. These works retained the Greek reverence for the human form, but expanded it to explore vulnerability, anguish, and complexity. The Hellenistic period also saw the proliferation of small-scale sculptures and reliefs, which democratized access to classical ideals, allowing these motifs to permeate everyday life and public spaces. This transmission of Greek artistic principles was not static, but evolved through interaction and adaptation. Roman and Hellenistic artists did not merely replicate Greek models. They recontextualized them within their own socio-political frameworks. The nude, once a symbol of divine perfection in Greek art, became a vehicle for expressing human ambition and mortality in Roman contexts. Meanwhile, Hellenistic innovations in form and emotion laid the groundwork for later artistic movements, ensuring the enduring influence of classical ideals. These developments underscore how Greek art's emphasis on the human form was both preserved and transformed, shaping the visual culture of the ancient world and beyond. The transmission of classical ideals persisted through the Renaissance, as humanist scholars revived interest in ancient texts and artistic techniques. By the 16th century, Italian academies formalized the study of Greco-Roman proportion, perspective, and idealized forms, embedding these principles into artistic education. This framework influenced French academies like the Académie des Beaux-Arts, which institutionalized classical training as a benchmark for artistic excellence. Such systems preserved the legacy of Greek aesthetics while adapting them to new cultural contexts, ensuring their enduring impact on Western art. The Roman adoption of Greek artistic ideals, particularly the representation of the nude human form, marked a profound cultural shift in the ancient world. While the Greeks had long celebrated the nude as a symbol of physical perfection and philosophical idealism, the Romans initially approached it with a different perspective. Early Roman art often depicted the nude in a more functional or militaristic context, reflecting the empire's pragmatic values. However, as Rome expanded its cultural horizons, especially through interactions with Greek territories, the Romans began to embrace and adapt Greek artistic conventions. The nude became a medium through which they could express both admiration for Greek aesthetics and their own evolving sense of identity. This integration was not merely superficial. Roman artists reinterpreted Greek forms, often emphasizing realism and individuality over the idealized harmony favored by their Greek counterparts. The use of the nude in Roman art extended beyond mythology and athletics to encompass everyday life, as seen in frescoes and sculptures that depicted citizens, soldiers, and even family scenes. This shift reflected a broader Roman fascination with the human body as a site of both beauty and utility. The nude became a tool for asserting power, celebrating civic virtue, and in some cases, exploring themes of mortality and the human condition. The Romans also adopted Greek techniques in sculpture and painting, such as the use of chiaroscuro and dynamic poses, to create a sense of movement and vitality. Yet, their approach was distinct in its emphasis on naturalism and the interplay of light and shadow to convey emotion and psychological depth. This synthesis of Greek ideals with Roman innovation laid the groundwork for later artistic traditions, influencing the Renaissance and beyond. By reimagining the nude through their own cultural lens, the Romans transformed a Greek artistic legacy into a symbol of their own imperial grandeur and humanistic aspirations. The Romans often reinterpreted Greek nude sculptures to emphasize strength, civic duty, and imperial authority rather than idealized beauty. For example, the Doryphoros, spear-bearer, was adapted into Roman works like the Doryphoros copy from the Capitoline museums, where the figure's musculature was highlighted as a symbol of military prowess. Unlike Greek art, which often idealized the human form, Roman artists prioritized naturalism, capturing individuality and dynamic movement. This shift reflected broader cultural values, as nude figures in Roman contexts frequently embodied virtues like discipline and perseverance, aligning with the empire's ethos of order and expansion. Such works were also used to commemorate victories, reinforcing the connection between physical excellence and political power. The transition from the classical to the Hellenistic period marked a profound evolution in the representation of the human form, particularly the nude. Intellectual erudition began to be seen as less central to artistic prestige. Art began to be viewed as both a technical task and a means of knowledge transmission. Artists, such as Praxiteles and Lysippos, redefined the classical canon, infusing their works with a heightened sense of realism and psychological depth. The Doryphoros, a quintessential classical figure, exemplified balance and symmetry, but Hellenistic sculptors sought to capture the fleeting moments of movement and tension that defined human life. France played a pivotal role in establishing a structured model for academic art. The Hellenistic period also saw a growing fascination with the interplay of light and shadow, enabling sculptors to render surfaces with greater texture and volume. The Academy exhibited limited activity and theoretical production. The Laocoon group, though a group sculpture, exemplifies this era's emphasis on dramatic expression and emotional intensity. Artists faced increased economic uncertainty due to shifting patronage systems. These works challenged the notion of the nude as purely aesthetic, instead positioning it as a medium for exploring the duality of beauty and vulnerability. In painting, the Hellenistic approach mirrored this shift. Frescoes and panel paintings from the period often depicted nudes in naturalistic settings, such as gardens or domestic spaces, emphasizing their connection to the physical world. The use of perspective and layered composition allowed for a more immersive experience, drawing viewers into the narrative of the figures. This period's focus on individuality also extended to portraiture, where the nude was frequently used to convey the unique character of a subject. The interplay between idealism and realism became a defining feature of Hellenistic art, reflecting a broader cultural shift toward introspection and the exploration of the human condition. This evolution laid the groundwork for later artistic traditions, including Roman adaptations that further emphasized naturalism. The Hellenistic nude, with its blend of technical innovation and emotional resonance, remains a testament to the era's artistic ambition, a bridge between the idealized forms of the past and the more human-centered expressions that would define subsequent centuries. The Hellenistic emphasis on psychological depth and dramatic movement found expression in works like the Laocoon group, where intertwined figures convey visceral tension. Sculptors mastered intricate drapery folds and lifelike musculature, while painters layered translucent glazes to simulate flesh tones. These advancements, rooted in observation of nature, bridged classical idealism with a newfound realism, influencing Roman artists who adopted Hellenistic techniques to depict both heroic and intimate human experiences. Intellectual erudition began to be seen as outdated and socially unworthy. Artists began to seek greater recognition comparable to that of intellectuals versed in the liberal arts. Art increasingly took on roles related to knowledge acquisition and transmission. The Medici family in Florence, among other patrons, played a pivotal role in fostering this cultural shift, commissioning works that celebrated the dignity of the human form and the potential of individual achievement. Painting and sculpture were increasingly regarded as subjects amenable to theoretical analysis. Classical sculptures and statues, such as the Discobolus and the Venus de Milo, had long symbolized ideals of beauty, strength, and perfection. Artists faced greater financial uncertainty due to the dissolution of guild systems. Figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo dissected cadavers to study musculature and skeletal structure, ensuring their depictions of the human form were both scientifically accurate and artistically profound. France played a key role in institutionalizing the academic model with significant organizational impact. This shift was also deeply tied to the development of academic institutions. The Academy lacked formalized educational frameworks despite its theoretical activity. The Academy's curriculum, influenced by the writings of Leon Battista Alberti and the works of ancient masters, emphasized the importance of disegno, drawing, as the foundation of artistic excellence. the Academy became closely aligned with state interests, significantly influencing national art policy. The Renaissance's embrace of classical ideals was not without its complexities. Le Brun emphasized the role of cultural inheritance and established traditions in art. Some artists, like Raphael, sought to harmonize classical motifs with Christian themes, while others, such as Michelangelo, pushed the boundaries of human representation, infusing their works with a sense of dynamic vitality. Academic doctrine reached a notable level of theoretical and institutional development. The Renaissance reimagined the human form as a bridge between classical antiquity and modern inquiry, driven by the intellectual currents of humanism. This movement, rooted in the revival of classical texts and a renewed focus on human potential, transformed the nude from a static symbol of divine perfection into a dynamic medium for exploring anatomy, emotion, and individuality. Artists and scholars, inspired by the rediscovery of ancient Greco-Roman art, sought to reconcile classical ideals with contemporary human experience, fostering a culture where the nude body became both a subject of scientific study and a vehicle for spiritual and intellectual expression. Central to this transformation was the establishment of art academies, such as Florence's Accademia delle Arti del Disegno, founded in 1553 under the patronage of Cosimo de' Medici. These institutions formalized the study of classical art, emphasizing disciplines like anatomy, geometry, and perspective. Artists dissected cadavers to understand musculature, blending empirical observation with artistic mastery. This approach, championed by figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, elevated the nude to a realm of scientific inquiry, where the body was dissected not just for aesthetic beauty, but to reveal the underlying harmony of nature and humanity. The nude also became a canvas for exploring human potential and moral complexity. In works such as Michelangelo's David or the Sistine Chapel's creation of Adam, the human form is imbued with vitality, capturing both physical perfection and the tension between earthly existence and divine aspiration. These depictions reflected humanism's celebration of individual agency, as the nude was no longer confined to religious iconography, but instead became a symbol of human capability and intellect. Yet this revival was not without tension. While humanism celebrated classical antiquity, it also sought to redefine its legacy for a new era. The academies, though rooted in classical tradition, also fostered innovation, encouraging artists to experiment with form and perspective. This duality, honoring the past while forging new artistic languages, marked the Renaissance's enduring legacy. The nude, once a symbol of divine order, now embodied the era's quest to reconcile antiquity with the complexities of the human condition. The academies formalized this intellectual ethos, embedding classical studies into art education and standardizing techniques through rigorous training. By the 17th century, institutions like France's Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture institutionalized the ideal of art as disciplined practice, privileging linear precision and historical accuracy. This framework endured despite Enlightenment critiques, shaping generations of artists and cementing the academic tradition as both a guardian of classical heritage and a catalyst for new artistic methodologies. The Renaissance nude emerged as a profound synthesis of classical ideals and humanist inquiry, embodying both divine perfection and earthly vulnerability. Art academies, founded in the late 15th century across Italy, became crucibles for this transformation. Institutions like Florence's Accademia delle Arti del Disegno, established in 1563, prioritized the study of classical antiquity, anatomy, and geometry, framing the nude as a bridge between the eternal and the tangible. Artists such as Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci dissected human anatomy to achieve lifelike precision, yet their figures often carried the weight of mythological or biblical narratives, echoing the classical tradition of using the nude to convey moral or spiritual truths. This duality, celebrating the body's physicality while elevating it to symbolic resonance, was central to Renaissance thought. The nude was no longer merely a subject of aesthetic admiration, but a vessel for exploring humanity's place in the cosmos. In works like Michelangelo's David, the figure's musculature and poised stance reflect both the idealized beauty of antiquity and the burgeoning humanist focus on individual potential. The artist's meticulous attention to anatomy, honed through dissection and study, underscored a belief that the human form was a microcosm of divine order, a concept rooted in Neoplatonic philosophy. Yet the Renaissance nude also grappled with the tension between sacred and secular. While classical antiquity had often depicted the nude in mythological contexts, Renaissance artists recontextualized these forms within Christian narratives. The Virgin's serene, idealized form in Raphael's Madonna of the Meadow, or the Apostles' solemnity in Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceilings, merged classical grace with Christian devotion. This synthesis reflected the era's broader intellectual currents, where ancient wisdom and Christian theology were not seen as opposing forces, but as complementary dimensions of a universal truth. The Academy's emphasis on disciplined technique further solidified the nude's role as a symbol of mastery. By codifying methods of perspective, proportion, and chiaroscuro, institutions like the French Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture, founded in 1648, elevated art to a scholarly pursuit, ensuring that the nude remained a central motif in both secular and religious art. This institutionalization of classical education meant the nude was no longer just a subject, but a language through which artists could articulate the complexities of human existence, both divine and mortal. The Florentine Accademia delle Arti del Disegno, founded in 1563, institutionalized the nude as a bridge between classical antiquity and Renaissance humanism, emphasizing anatomical precision as a testament to divine order. This rigor, later codified in French academies, transformed the nude into a symbol of intellectual mastery, where idealized forms reflected both earthly beauty and celestial harmony, perpetuating its dual role as a vessel for both secular and spiritual inquiry. Intellectual erudition began to be viewed with less social prestige as artists sought equality with liberal arts scholars. Art began to be increasingly regarded as a medium for knowledge transmission, though this perspective was not universally accepted. Painting and sculpture started to be considered theorizable, though this was a gradual shift from their traditional technical focus. Artists faced uncertainty regarding patronage and market stability after the guild system declined. France played a key role in institutionalizing the academic model, though its effectiveness was debated. Italy initiated the institutional model, while France refined it into a structured system. The Academy focused on philological and philosophical studies, though its artistic influence was limited. The Academy lacked formal educational frameworks, which limited its long-term impact. The Accademia di San Luca influenced the French Académie Royale, though the relationship was not direct. The Academy emphasized intellectual rigor, which shaped academic art's thematic and stylistic priorities. The Florentine Accademia delle Arti del Disegno, founded in 1563, later institutionalized the principles that Michelangelo had already embodied. This academy, which prioritized anatomical study and classical education, provided a framework for artists to explore the intersection of art and philosophy. While Michelangelo himself predated the academy, his approach to the nude reflected the very ideals that the institution sought to formalize. His ability to render the human body with such precision and vitality marked a departure from the more symbolic representations of the nude in earlier medieval art, aligning instead with the Renaissance quest to uncover the divine within the material world. David also serves as a meditation on the tension between vulnerability and power. The statue's unfinished state when first unveiled, its left hand still gripping a sword, hinted at the figure's internal conflict, a theme that resonates with the Renaissance preoccupation with duality. This duality between flesh and spirit, creation and destruction, is central to the work's enduring significance. By elevating the nude to a symbol of human potential, Michelangelo transformed the classical tradition into a vehicle for exploring the complexities of the human condition, a legacy that would shape the trajectory of Western art for centuries to come. As artists began to desire equality with intellectuals versed in the liberal arts, since art itself began to be seen not only as a technical task, as it had been for centuries, but also as a way of acquiring and transmitting knowledge. Though not exclusively, while Michelangelo's David exemplified the idealized beauty of the classical nude, the period that followed saw a growing emphasis on anatomical precision rooted in the rigorous methodologies developed within Renaissance academies. A significant stage of order and stability, Leonardo da Vinci, a quintessential figure of this era, embodied the fusion of art and science. Establishing a strong association with the state through dissections of cadavers, he mapped muscles, bones, and organs, translating his findings into studies that informed his art. Primarily the product of an acquired culture, Leonardo's work, however, was not merely technical. It sought to capture the vitality of the human form, bridging the gap between the idealized classical tradition and the naturalistic realism that would define later Renaissance art. The idea of perfection was particularly emphasized in Rome, the Accademia di San Luca, and in Bologna, the Accademia dei Desiderosi, became hubs for anatomical research, fostering a culture where artists and scholars collaborated to refine their craft. Emphasized the importance of line in art, establishing a strong association with the state. The integration of anatomical study into art education by these academies fostered a systematic approach to mastering the human form, blending artistic skill with scientific inquiry. Aiming to produce a national school less marked by tension compared to other countries, his emphasis on observation over idealization laid groundwork for the Renaissance's commitment to naturalism, influencing generations of artists to prioritize empirical study over traditional stylization. Intellectual erudition began to be increasingly viewed as outdated and socially unworthy, as artists began to desire equality with the intellectual versed in the liberal arts, since art itself began to be seen as increasingly more than just a technical task. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo dissected cadavers to grasp the intricacies of musculature and proportion, embedding this knowledge into their works. Painting and sculpture began to be considered more amenable to theoretical analysis in portraiture. This approach allowed artists to capture not just the likeness of their subjects, but also their physical vitality, aligning with the humanist ideal of celebrating individuality. Experienced reduced market security compared to the guild system founded in 1563 by Cosimo the Verpi of Medici. This institution brought together artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo's disciples, fostering a culture of rigorous anatomical study. France played a pivotal role in establishing a structured model existed for a relatively short period. The human form was no longer a vessel for religious or allegorical messages, but a testament to the individual's capacity for reason and beauty. This focus on the nude also reflected broader humanist values. By studying the body's structure, artists sought to mirror the harmony and order of the natural world, a concept rooted in classical philosophy. Portraits of scholars, statesmen, and patrons frequently featured nude or semi-nude figures, symbolizing their intellectual prowess and connection to the classical tradition. For instance, Leonardo's Vitruvian Man exemplifies this synthesis, blending anatomical precision with the ideal of human proportion. Such works celebrated the individual as a microcosm of universal truths, a core tenet of Renaissance humanism. The academies also standardized artistic education, ensuring that these principles were passed to future generations. The Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture in France, established in 1648, further codified these ideals, promoting the study of classical antiquity and anatomical accuracy. This institutionalization meant that the nude figure became a cornerstone of artistic training, reinforcing its status as a symbol of both technical mastery and human potential. Thus, the Renaissance's embrace of the nude in portraiture was more than a stylistic choice. It was a declaration of the era's intellectual and cultural priorities. By marrying empirical observation with humanist philosophy, artists transformed the human body into a canvas for exploring the individual's place in the cosmos. This legacy endured, shaping the trajectory of Western art and affirming the enduring fascination with the interplay between form, function, and human identity. The Renaissance marked a pivotal shift in the portrayal of the nude in religious art, as artists began to reconcile classical ideals with Christian theology. While medieval art often depicted biblical figures in stylized, symbolic forms, Renaissance painters and sculptors sought to imbue their subjects with lifelike realism. This was particularly evident in works like Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling, where the nude figures of Genesis are rendered with extraordinary anatomical precision. These depictions were not mere aesthetic exercises, they were imbued with profound theological significance. The nude body, once associated with sin and the fall of man, was recontextualized as a vessel for divine grace. In the creation of Adam, the muscular form of God and the supple figure of Adam bridge the gap between the celestial and the earthly, embodying the Renaissance belief in human potential and divine purpose. This duality of the sacred and the human was central to the era's artistic philosophy. Artists like Raphael and Leonardo da Vinci drew from classical antiquity, yet their works retained a spiritual resonance. The nude became a means to explore themes of transcendence and mortality, as seen in Leonardo's Adoration of the Magi, where the physicality of the figures underscores the humility of the divine incarnation. Yet this approach was not without controversy. Critics, including some church officials, questioned the explicitness of nude figures in religious contexts, fearing they might distract from spiritual contemplation. Nevertheless, the Renaissance's embrace of humanism allowed such depictions to coexist with theological narratives, reflecting a broader cultural shift towards celebrating the human experience as a reflection of the divine. The interplay between sacred symbolism and classical influence also extended to sculpture. Michelangelo's Pietà and David exemplify this synthesis, blending the idealized forms of antiquity with Christian iconography. The nude body, once a symbol of sin, was reimagined as a testament to human dignity and divine creation. This transformation was not accidental, but rooted in the era's intellectual currents, which sought to harmonize faith with reason. By elevating the human form, Renaissance artists redefined the boundaries of religious expression, crafting works that were both spiritually resonant and intellectually ambitious. The nude, thus, became a powerful medium through which the divine and the human could coexist in art. The Renaissance's integration of classical ideals into religious art also influenced later periods. setting precedents for how the nude could symbolize both spiritual purity and human vulnerability. This duality allowed artists to navigate the tension between sacred reverence and secular curiosity, ensuring the nude remained a bridge between the divine and the earthly in artistic expression. The Renaissance revival of classical antiquity reshaped artistic practice, embedding ancient ideals into the foundations of contemporary art. As artists began to seek equality with intellectuals trained in the liberal arts. In Florence, the Accademia delle Arti del Disegno, founded in 1563 under the patronage of Cosimo I de' Medici, institutionalized this pursuit. Artists like Michelangelo, a founding member, engaged deeply with Roman sculptures, analyzing their anatomical precision and idealized forms. The Academy's curriculum emphasized disegno, drawing from classical prototypes to refine technical mastery and elevate art to an intellectual discipline. First stage of significant order and stability, parallel developments in Rome, where the Accademia di San Luca emerged, further solidified the link between classical antiquity and Renaissance innovation. Artists there studied ancient ruins and sculptures, dissecting their compositional harmony and sculptural techniques, establishing a strong association with the state. This intellectual rigor, however, contrasted with the more intuitive approaches of earlier periods, primarily the product of an acquired culture. Yet this did not entirely replace traditional methods. Instead, it recontextualized them within a broader cultural dialogue. At no other time in the history of art theory, to the same extent, the formalization of classical study within these academies catalyzed a shift toward anatomical precision and idealized proportion, as artists dissected ancient sculptures to decode musculature and spatial harmony. Significantly influence artistic attitudes for much of the century. The emphasis on disegno, a term encompassing drawing, design, and compositional mastery, became central, reflecting the belief that artistic skill was a liberal art akin to rhetoric or philosophy. Establishing a strong association with the state, such developments entrenched classical antiquity as both a technical blueprint and a cultural ideal, shaping artistic education for centuries. Linked to the growth of the urban elite by the 17th century, institutions like France's Académie royale de peinture et de sculpture institutionalized these principles, codifying techniques such as linear perspective and anatomical accuracy. Could be considered a successful example. Most painters were trained there. The Renaissance marked a profound reawakening of classical ideals, and nowhere was this more evident than in the sculptor's renewed fascination with the human form. Central to this revival was the nude, a subject that had been largely eschewed in medieval art, but now became a vehicle for exploring anatomy, proportion, and the divine potential of the human body. Sculptors like Donatello and Michelangelo redefined the possibilities of marble and bronze, crafting figures that balanced idealized beauty with visceral realism. Donatello's David, 1430 to 1440, for instance, stands as a testament to this synthesis. The young hero's contrapposto stance, weight shifted onto one leg, torso twisting in dynamic tension, echoes classical antiquity while imbuing the figure with a sense of movement and psychological depth. Such works were not merely technical feats. They embodied the era's humanist ethos, celebrating the individual as both a physical and intellectual marvel. This period saw the emergence of rigorous anatomical study as a cornerstone of artistic practice. Sculptors dissected cadavers to understand musculature and bone structure, ensuring their figures possessed a lifelike precision that had eluded earlier artisans. Michelangelo's David, with its meticulously rendered musculature and lifelike skin texture, epitomizes this approach. Yet the nude was not merely a scientific exercise. It carried profound symbolic weight. In religious contexts, it often represented divine grace or human fallibility, as seen in Michelangelo's Pietà, 1498, where the Virgin's serene form contrasts with the raw vulnerability of Christ's body. Meanwhile, secular works like Benvenuto Cellini's Perseus with the Head of Medusa, 1545, celebrated the nude as a symbol of triumph, blending mythological narrative with anatomical mastery. The institutionalization of these ideals began with the founding of academies such as Florence's Accademia delle Arti del Disegno in 1563, which formalized the study of classical antiquity and human anatomy. These institutions elevated the nude from a subject of artistic curiosity to a central pillar of artistic education, ensuring that future generations would inherit the Renaissance's legacy. Yet this technical precision was never divorced from deeper themes. The nude became a canvas for exploring humanity's relationship with the divine, the natural world, and the self, a duality that would persist as academic traditions solidified in the 17th century. Thus, the Renaissance sculptor's mastery of the nude was both a technical revolution and a philosophical inquiry, laying the groundwork for the enduring interplay between art and humanism. This institutionalization solidified the nude as a cornerstone of artistic training, blending anatomical precision with classical ideals. As academies expanded across Europe, they standardized techniques, ensuring the nude remained central to both Renaissance and subsequent academic traditions, bridging the gap between artistic mastery and intellectual rigor. The Renaissance redefined the nude as both a technical challenge and a symbolic vessel, bridging the classical past with Christian theology and humanist ideals. Artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci dissected human anatomy, seeking to render the body with unprecedented precision. Yet their works transcended mere realism, embedding nudity within narratives of divine creation, moral temptation, or spiritual transcendence. In Michelangelo's creation of Adam, the nude figures of God and Adam are not only anatomically flawless, but also charged with cosmic significance, their forms embodying the intersection of the sacred and the corporeal. Similarly, Leonardo's Vitruvian Man fused classical proportion with humanist philosophy, positioning the nude as a universal symbol of harmony and intellectual pursuit. This duality, realism as mastery and symbolism as meaning, was institutionalized by Renaissance academies, which formalized the study of anatomy and classical antiquity. The Accademia delle Arti del Disegno in Florence, founded in 1563, became a crucible for artists to dissect cadavers and study ancient sculptures, ensuring the nude remained central to artistic training. Yet these institutions also reinforced the nude's role in religious iconography. Biblical scenes, such as the fall of man or the adoration of the Magi, used nudity to evoke themes of sin, purity, or divine grace. The Virgin Mary's semi-nude form in Raphael's Sistine Madonna balances vulnerability and transcendence, reflecting the era's tension between earthly and spiritual realms. The nude's symbolic complexity extended to mythological and allegorical contexts. In Titian's Venus of Urbino, the figure is both a celebration of classical beauty and a meditation on power and desire, her nudity rendered with sensuality that defies purely religious interpretation. Such works reveal how Renaissance artists navigated the dual legacy of antiquity and Christianity, using the nude to explore human potential while anchoring it in moral or divine frameworks. By the 17th century, academic institutions like the French Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture codified these practices, emphasizing technical rigor and classical ideals. Yet the nude's symbolic resonance persisted, evolving through new artistic movements. The balance between realism and symbolism, forged in the Renaissance, became a cornerstone of Western art, shaping how the human form was both studied and sanctified. The academic institutions formalized the study of the nude as both technical exercise and symbolic vessel, codifying classical ideals while marginalizing contemporary experimentation. This dual focus entrenched nudity as a marker of idealized beauty and moral complexity, shaping artistic production until challenged by movements like realism and impressionism, which prioritized individual perception over institutionalized tradition. The Renaissance era marked a profound shift in the representation of the human form as artists began to explore the nude body as both a subject of aesthetic beauty and a vessel for spiritual and intellectual inquiry. This transformation was deeply intertwined with the humanist movement, which emphasized the potential and dignity of human beings. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo studied anatomy meticulously, dissecting cadavers to understand musculature and proportion, thereby infusing their works with a lifelike realism that had not been seen since classical antiquity. The nude became a symbol of human perfection, reflecting the era's fascination with the harmony between the physical and the divine. Yet, the nude also carried spiritual weight. In Christian iconography, the naked body of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden symbolized innocence and the original state of humanity before sin. Conversely, the nude in religious art often embodied the tension between earthly desire and spiritual transcendence. For instance, Michelangelo's Pietà presents the Virgin Mary cradling the dead Christ, her nudity a stark contrast to the solemnity of the scene, evoking both vulnerability and divine grace. Such depictions invited viewers to contemplate the duality of human existence, mortal yet sacred, flawed yet capable of redemption. The interplay between anatomy and spirituality was further amplified by the era's intellectual currents. Humanist scholars revived classical texts, which celebrated the body as a temple of the soul. This philosophical framework encouraged artists to depict the nude not merely as an object of beauty, but as a medium through which to explore existential questions. The tension between the corporeal and the transcendent became a central theme as seen in works like Titian's Venus of Uffizi, where the goddess's sensuality is tempered by an enigmatic, almost otherworldly presence. Thus, the nude in Renaissance art became a complex symbol, bridging the realms of science, theology, and philosophy. It reflected the period's broader quest to reconcile the material world with the divine, embodying both the triumphs and contradictions of human ambition. This duality ensured that the nude would remain a powerful motif, shaping artistic and intellectual discourse for centuries to come. This pursuit was exemplified by Leonardo da Vinci, who dissected cadavers to study musculature and proportions, merging scientific inquiry with artistic mastery. The nude thus became a vessel for exploring human potential, embodying both the divine and the secular in an era defined by intellectual curiosity and artistic innovation. The Renaissance marked a pivotal shift in artistic production, as societies moved from sacred to profane art, driven by secularization and the revival of classical ideals. This transformation required artists to cultivate intellectual depth, transcending their role as mere craftsmen. The guild system, once central to artistic practice, began to seem outdated, as artists sought recognition akin to intellectuals versed in the liberal arts. Painting and sculpture, once seen as technical tasks, now became subjects of theoretical discourse, paralleling the status of literature and poetry. However, this rise in social standing came with uncertainty, as artists relied on individual patrons rather than guild protections. France played a crucial role in institutionalizing this new model. While Italy pioneered the concept, France refined it into a structured system. The Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture, founded in 1648 by Charles Le Brun, aimed to elevate artists as gentlemen of the liberal arts, distancing them from manual labor. King Louis XIV later reorganized the Academy in 1661, embedding it within the state apparatus to glorify absolutism. This institutionalization made France the new European cultural hub, supplanting Italian dominance. The Academy's emphasis on inherited tradition and formal rigor, as noted by art historian Moshe Barash, defined academic art's peak, with the Italian High Renaissance as its ideal. The French model spread across Europe, inspiring academies in cities like Nuremberg, Antwerp, and Berlin. In England, the Royal Academy of Arts, 1768, adopted similar principles, though its influence was more limited. Smaller nations like Denmark saw success with the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts, 1754, which fostered a national school of art. Meanwhile, the battle of styles between Poussinistes, who prioritized line and intellectual rigor, and Rubenistes, who emphasized color and emotion, dominated artistic debates. This tension resurfaced in later movements like neoclassicism and Romanticism. By the 18th century, academicism faced challenges from Enlightenment thinkers, who criticized its rigidity and dogmatism. Figures like Diderot, however, still endorsed its hierarchical structure of genres. The French Revolution further disrupted the system, leading to the dissolution of Parisian academies in 1793. Yet, new institutions emerged, such as the Institut de France, to replace the old order. Despite these shifts, academic principles endured, shaping art education and practice for centuries. The spread of the French model, combined with its adaptability to local contexts, ensured its lasting influence, even as new movements questioned its dominance. Intellectual erudition began to be seen as outdated and socially unworthy. Artists sought to evoke awe and engagement through grandeur, contrast, and psychological depth, often using the human form as a vessel for these ambitions. However, artists lost the security of market insertion provided by the guild system. Unlike the serene, idealized figures of earlier periods, Baroque nudes pulsed with vitality, their poses and expressions capturing moments of passion, conflict, or spiritual fervor. This transformation reflected broader cultural shifts, religious devotion, political power struggles, and the rise of individualism that defined the era. Caravaggio, a pivotal figure in this movement, redefined the nude through his mastery of chiaroscuro, the stark contrast between light and shadow. In works like David with the Head of Goliath, 1610, his figures are rendered with raw realism, their muscles taut with tension, their faces etched with anguish or triumph. The nude here is not passive. It embodies the visceral drama of the moment, a testament to the artist's belief in the power of human experience. Similarly, Peter Paul Rubens infused his nudes with kinetic energy, as seen in The Elevation of the Cross, 1611, where figures twist in agony and ecstasy, their bodies contorted to convey the physical and spiritual weight of the scene. These depictions moved beyond mere anatomical accuracy, becoming conduits for emotional and narrative force. The Baroque nude also served as a bridge between the classical past and the modern world. While rooted in antiquity, it was reimagined to reflect the complexities of contemporary life. Artists like Artemisia Gentileschi, a contemporary of Caravaggio, used the nude to explore themes of female agency and suffering, as in Judith beheading Holofernes, 1613, where the protagonist's muscular, determined stance subverts traditional portrayals of women. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church, seeking to inspire devotion, commissioned works that combined the nude sensuality with religious symbolism, such as The Ecstasy of Saint Teresa by Gian Lorenzo Bernini, where the saint's outstretched arms and radiant light evoke both spiritual transcendence and earthly desire. This era's embrace of the nude as a medium for drama and emotion laid the groundwork for future artistic movements, blending the classical with the theatrical. The Baroque period's legacy lies in its ability to transform the human form into a dynamic expression of the soul, capturing the tumult of an age in motion. Intellectual erudition began to be viewed with less favor as artists sought greater social recognition. Intellectual erudition faced declining prestige as artists pursued broader social equity. Art began to be reinterpreted as a medium for knowledge transmission alongside technical skill. Painting and sculpture increasingly became subjects for theoretical analysis. Art came to be seen as both a technical task and a means of knowledge transmission. Artists faced greater financial uncertainty compared to the guild system's protections. French academicism established standardized approaches to artistic training. Italy played a foundational role in establishing this institutional model. France significantly expanded and institutionalized the academic model. The academy had a relatively short operational lifespan. The academy lacked formalized educational programs. The emphasis on intellectual aspects influenced artistic subject matter and styles. The academy aimed to elevate artists' status akin to Italian models. The academy engaged in regular debates and theoretical work. The academy initially struggled with organizational challenges. The academy was granted significant influence over artistic production. The academy became closely associated with state interests. France emerged as a major cultural center alongside Italy. The academy emphasized theoretical and philosophical dimensions. France emerged as a major cultural center alongside Italy. The collapse of classical academic structures in the wake of the French Revolution catalyzed a radical reevaluation of artistic purpose. No longer bound by the rigid conventions of neoclassicism, artists began to interrogate the nude as a symbol of both liberation and constraint. The Romantic movement, for instance, reimagined the nude as a vessel for emotional intensity, often juxtaposing idealized forms with raw, almost subversive sensuality. Think of the way Francisco Goya's The Nude Martyr, 1800 to 1801, subverted traditional portraiture by framing the female form as a site of autonomy rather than passive beauty. This shift reflected broader cultural tensions between Enlightenment rationalism and the burgeoning fascination with the irrational, the visceral, and the ephemeral. By the 19th century, the nude had become a battleground for competing ideologies. The Impressionists, for example, sought to capture the fleeting interplay of light and shadow on the human body, as seen in Degas' Little Dancer of 12 Years, 1878, where the child's form is rendered with startling immediacy, blurring the line between artifice and reality. Meanwhile, symbolist painters like Odilon Redon transformed the nude into a cipher for the mystical, using exaggerated forms and dreamlike compositions to evoke the subconscious. The nude was no longer just a subject. It was a medium through which artists could challenge societal norms and explore the boundaries of perception. The 20th century saw the nude further destabilized by technological and philosophical shifts. Cubism, with its fragmented perspectives, dissected the body into geometric planes, as in Picasso's Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, 1907, where the female form becomes a mosaic of angular, almost alien shapes. This deconstruction mirrored the era's existential uncertainties as artists grappled with the fragmentation of identity in a rapidly modernizing world. Surrealists like Salvador Dalí reanimated the nude through dream logic, rendering it both erotic and uncanny, as in The Temptation of St. Anthony, 1946, where the body becomes a landscape of desire and terror. Yet the nude's evolution was not solely about abstraction. In the mid-20th century, artists like Frida Kahlo reasserted its power as a site of personal and political resistance. Her self-portraits, often depicting the nude body in states of pain or transformation, became a radical act of visibility for women navigating patriarchal and colonial systems. Similarly, the feminist art movement of the 1960s and 70s reclaimed the nude as a tool of subversion, challenging the male gaze that had long dominated its representation. The nude, once a symbol of idealized beauty, had become a complex, contested space, a mirror reflecting both the aspirations and the contradictions of modernity. Your sight becomes available as items enter the public domain. Artists like Judy Chicago and Carolee Schneemann interrogated the historical erasure of women's agency, using the nude to reclaim autonomy and confront societal norms. Their work often subverted traditional aesthetics, replacing idealized forms with raw, unapologetic depictions of the body as a political and cultural text. This shift laid groundwork for contemporary practices that continue to interrogate the nude's role in art, expanding its significance beyond gender to encompass race, sexuality, and identity. In recent decades, the nude has become a vehicle for exploring intersectional themes, reflecting broader societal shifts. Artists such as Mickalene Thomas and Lorna Simpson recontextualize the nude within Black feminist frameworks, challenging Eurocentric beauty standards and centering Black women's experiences. Their work often juxtaposes the classical nude with contemporary imagery, critiquing how historical canons have excluded or misrepresented marginalized bodies. Similarly, the rise of body positivity movements has influenced contemporary art, with creators like Amy Sherald and Tshabalala Self using the nude to celebrate diverse forms of embodiment and reject narrow ideals of beauty. These artists position the body not as a passive object, but as a site of resistance, reclamation, and self-expression. Philosophically, the nude remains a contested space, reflecting evolving dialogues about visibility, power, and representation. Postmodern critiques question the very notion of the nude as a universal category, highlighting how cultural and historical contexts shape its meaning. For instance, the digital age has transformed the nude's presentation, with virtual reality and AI-generated art blurring boundaries between the corporeal and the imagined. This technological shift raises new questions about authorship, authenticity, and the ethics of representation. Meanwhile, global movements advocating for LGBTQ+ rights and disability inclusion have expanded the nude's narrative, emphasizing bodies that defy traditional categorizations. The nude's enduring relevance lies in its capacity to mirror societal tensions and aspirations. Whether through the raw honesty of performance art, the subversive humor of contemporary installations, or the quiet introspection of minimalist sculptures, the human body continues to serve as both a mirror and a manifesto. As cultural paradigms evolve, so too does the nude's role in art, a testament to its power to provoke, challenge, and connect across generations. The nude's evolving role reflects broader cultural shifts, from reclaiming marginalized identities to interrogating power dynamics in art history. Digital platforms amplify its reach, enabling global dialogues on embodiment and visibility. Meanwhile, institutional critiques challenge traditional canons, positioning the nude as both a tool of exclusion and a site of subversion, reshaping its legacy in contemporary discourse. Intellectual erudition began to be seen as outdated and socially unworthy, from the idealized forms of ancient Greece to the provocative realism of modern art. The depiction of the human body in its most unadorned state has continually provoked questions about beauty, morality, and identity. Painting and sculpture began to be viewed as subjects open to theoretical analysis. These works were not merely aesthetic achievements, but also reflections of philosophical ideals, such as the Greek concept of arete, excellence in form and function. France played a key role in institutionalizing academic art, with greater order and stability. Michelangelo's David, for instance, embodies both physical mastery and moral fortitude, merging the idealized body with a narrative of human potential. The Academy focused on philological and philosophical studies alongside arts and sciences, By the 19th century, the nude had evolved into a tool for exploring individual experience and societal change. The Academy had limited longevity, despite its active engagement. Meanwhile, the rise of photography in the late 1800s introduced new possibilities for capturing the nude, blurring the lines between art and documentation. This period also saw the nude become a symbol of both liberation and controversy, as seen in the works of Degas and Manet, who recontextualized the classical form within modern urban settings. In the 20th century, the nude took on even more complex meanings, reflecting shifting attitudes towards sexuality, gender, and power. Artists like Frida Kahlo and Cindy Sherman used the nude to interrogate personal and political identity, while movements such as Surrealism and Abstract Expressionism redefined the body as a site of psychological and existential exploration. Today, the nude continues to provoke debate, appearing in art that challenges norms, critiques institutional power, or reclaims the body as a space of agency. Its enduring significance lies not only in its aesthetic power, but also in its ability to mirror the evolving relationship between humanity and its own form. The nude remains a potent symbol of cultural dialogue, reflecting shifting societal values from ancient rituals to modern identity politics. Its evolution mirrors humanity's ongoing negotiation of power, vulnerability, and belonging, ensuring its relevance as both a historical artifact and a living testament to artistic innovation. The human nude has served as a universal symbol across civilizations, embodying ideals of beauty, power, and spirituality. In ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome, the nude figure was central to artistic expression, reflecting cultural values of physical perfection and divine connection. Greek sculptures like the Venus de Milo and Discobolus idealized the human form, blending athleticism with aesthetic harmony, while Roman art often emphasized realism, capturing the nude body in dynamic poses. These depictions were not merely artistic choices, but deeply tied to religious and philosophical beliefs, celebrating the body as a vessel for both mortal and divine essence. During the Renaissance, the nude became a bridge between classical antiquity and humanist ideals. Artists like Michelangelo and Raphael revived classical techniques, using the nude to explore anatomy, movement, and emotion. Michelangelo's David epitomized this fusion, portraying a young hero in a state of tension, blending physicality with psychological depth. The nude was also a tool for exploring human potential, as seen in Leonardo da Vinci's anatomical studies, which sought to understand the body's mechanics as a gateway to universal truths. The 19th and 20th centuries saw the nude's role shift, reflecting broader societal changes. Romantic artists like Delacroix used the nude to evoke passion and introspection, while impressionists such as Degas captured fleeting moments of intimacy and vulnerability. In modern art, movements like Surrealism and Abstract Expressionism redefined the nude as a symbol of subconscious desire and existential freedom. Picasso's nude, Green Leaves, figure on a chair, 1966, exemplifies this, merging the figure with abstract forms to challenge traditional representations. Contemporary debates around the nude in art highlight its evolving cultural significance. While some view it as a celebration of human form, others critique its historical associations with objectification and colonialism. Feminist artists like Frida Kahlo and Cindy Sherman have recontextualized the nude, using it to explore identity, agency, and resistance. Today, the nude remains a contested symbol, reflecting both the enduring fascination with the human body and the complexities of its representation in a rapidly changing world. Its journey through art history mirrors humanity's ongoing dialogue with beauty, power, and the self. The nude's evolution continues in digital art and virtual reality, where technology reimagines embodiment and identity. Contemporary creators like Kehinde Wiley and Lorna Simpson challenge historical norms by centering marginalized voices, while body positivity movements reclaim the nude as a site of empowerment. These developments underscore the nude's enduring role as a mirror for societal values, reflecting both progress and persistent tensions in how humanity defines itself through art. The intellectual erudition began to be seen as outdated and socially unworthy, primarily as a means of acquiring and transmitting knowledge. Market stability, that the guild system provided an early stage of significant order and stability, significantly strengthening the school's association with the state. Italian cultural dominance, product of cultural education and tradition, a high point of its rigor and comprehensiveness, a definitive model, significantly influence artistic attitudes. The Romantic movement embraced the nude as a symbol of passion and nature, while realism sought to depict it with unflinching honesty, often challenging societal norms about gender and sexuality. The 20th century saw further fragmentation. Dadaists and surrealists deconstructed the nude's traditional meanings, using it to critique industrialization and psychological repression. Meanwhile, movements like feminism re-examined the nude as a site of both empowerment and exploitation, questioning who controls the narrative of the body in art. Today, the nude continues to evolve, shaped by digital technology and globalized perspectives. Contemporary artists like Kehinde Wiley and Lorna Simpson reimagine the nude by subverting historical power dynamics, using it to explore race, identity, and agency. Digital art and virtual reality have expanded the medium, allowing for interactive and immersive experiences that challenge static representations. Yet the nude remains contested. Debates over pornography, body positivity, and cultural appropriation persist, reflecting ongoing tensions between artistic freedom and societal norms. This fluidity underscores the nude's enduring role as a mirror for human complexity. Its legacy lies not in fixed meanings, but in its capacity to adapt, reflecting the ever-changing dialogue between art, culture, and the human condition. As new technologies and ideologies reshape its representation, the nude remains a testament to art's power to interrogate, inspire, and transform. The nude has long served as a lens through which humanity examines its own form, vulnerability, and aspirations. From the earliest cave paintings to the marble perfection of classical antiquity, the human body has been both subject and symbol, a canvas for cultural values and existential inquiry. In ancient Greece, the nude was a celebration of idealized beauty, tied to philosophical ideals of harmony and reason. Roman artists, while influenced by Greek models, often emphasized individuality and realism, reflecting a society that valued both aesthetic and practical mastery. These early depictions were not merely artistic exercises, they were acts of cultural codification, reinforcing ideals of power, divinity, and human potential. The Renaissance rekindled this tradition, but with a shift toward humanism. Artists like Michelangelo and Da Vinci dissected the human form with scientific precision, blending anatomy with spiritual symbolism. The nude became a vehicle for exploring the divine within the mortal, as seen in Michelangelo's David, a figure of both physical perfection and inner turmoil. Yet even here, the nude was entangled with societal hierarchies. It was often reserved for male subjects, reflecting the era's gendered norms. By the 19th and 20th centuries, the nude evolved into a site of rebellion and introspection. Impressionists like Degas and Manet challenged traditional norms by depicting the nude in everyday settings, blurring the lines between art and life. Meanwhile, movements like Surrealism and Modernism used the nude to explore identity, desire, and the subconscious. Artists such as Frida Kahlo and Pablo Picasso redefined the nude as a space for personal and political expression, often subverting patriarchal narratives. Today, the nude remains a contested terrain. Contemporary artists like Kehinde Wiley and Lorna Simpson confront historical erasures, reimagining the nude as a tool for reclaiming agency. Digital media and virtual reality have expanded its possibilities, allowing for new explorations of embodiment and identity. Yet debates persist. Is the nude an act of reverence or exploitation? Can it be decolonized, or does it inherently carry the weight of colonial gaze? These questions underscore the nude's enduring role as a mirror, not just of the body, but of society's evolving values. Its history is a testament to art's power to reflect, challenge, and transform the human experience. In the digital age, artists like Cindy Sherman and contemporary photographers explore the nude through fragmented perspectives, challenging perceptions of identity and power. Virtual reality further redefines the nude as an interactive, ever-shifting experience, reflecting evolving dialogues on embodiment and agency. Intellectual erudition was increasingly viewed as outdated and socially unworthy. As artists began to seek equality with intellectuals versed in the liberal arts, in ancient Greece and Rome, the nude was a symbol of divine perfection and civic virtue, immortalized in marble through the mastery of sculptors like Phidias and Michelangelo. These works were not merely aesthetic achievements, but declarations of a civilization's reverence for the human form as a vessel for transcendence. The Renaissance rekindled this tradition, infusing the nude with renewed humanism. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Raphael dissected anatomy to achieve lifelike precision, blending scientific inquiry with spiritual aspiration. Yet the nude's role expanded beyond the divine during the Baroque period. It became a stage for drama and emotion, as seen in Caravaggio's chiaroscuro and Bernini's dynamic sculptures. The 19th century saw further transformation. The nude became a battleground for debates on morality and modernity. Realists like Courbet rejected idealization, while symbolists used the nude to explore subconscious desires, blurring the lines between art and psychology. In the 20th century, the nude fractured into fragments, reflecting the disintegration of traditional narratives. Dadaists and surrealists deconstructed the form, while abstract expressionists abandoned it altogether. Yet, even in this fragmentation, the nude persisted as a symbol of resistance and reinvention. Contemporary artists now navigate a digital landscape where virtual reality and AI redefine its boundaries. The nude is no longer confined to canvas or stone. It exists in code, in augmented spaces, and in dialogues about representation, agency, and technology. Despite centuries of scrutiny and reinterpretation, the nude remains a vital thread in the artistic tapestry. Its enduring presence underscores its capacity to evolve without losing its essence, a testament to art's power to distill the complexities of the human condition. Whether carved in marble, painted in oil, or rendered in pixels, the nude continues to provoke, inspire, and challenge, affirming its place as a timeless emblem of creativity and cultural dialogue. The nude's evolution mirrors shifting societal values, from classical idealism to contemporary interrogations of identity, power, and embodiment. Today, artists reimagine it through digital media, performance, and collaborative practices, challenging static notions of beauty and agency. These works often destabilize historical hierarchies, positioning the nude as a site of cultural negotiation rather than passive objectification, ensuring its legacy remains dynamic and contested. Intellectual erudition began to be viewed with less emphasis in certain social contexts. Intellectual erudition faced diminishing social prominence in some circles. Artists increasingly sought recognition comparable to that of liberal arts practitioners. Art began to be increasingly associated with knowledge transmission alongside technical skill. Painting and sculpture were increasingly framed as subjects amenable to theoretical analysis. Painting and sculpture were increasingly seen as subjects for theoretical exploration, akin to literature. artists faced greater uncertainty in market stability compared to the guild system. Artists relied more on individual patronage than collective guild support. The shift occurred in regions where artistic patronage was centralized. The development of academic art was closely tied to institutional frameworks in certain regions. Yet the nude's significance extended beyond academic confines. The Enlightenment, with its skepticism of rigid hierarchies, began to challenge these norms. Thinkers like Diderot, while endorsing the hierarchy of genres, questioned whether art could truly capture the soul of its subject. By the 19th century, movements like Romanticism and later Modernism redefined the nude as a site of personal and political expression. Artists such as Ingres and Delacroix navigated the tension between academic tradition and individual vision, while later generations reclaimed the nude as a symbol of autonomy, challenging its historical associations with objectification. Today, the nude remains a potent symbol, its meaning shaped by centuries of discourse. It is both a relic of cultural heritage and a contested space where identity, power, and resistance intersect. From the marble statues of antiquity to the provocative art of the 21st century, the nude continues to evolve, reflecting not just the artistry of its creators, but the ever-changing values of the societies that gaze upon it. In this duality lies its enduring power, a testament to humanity's capacity to shape and be shaped by the forms we create. The academic tradition's rigid hierarchies and technical rigor persisted, shaping how artists approached the nude even as movements like modernism rejected its constraints. Yet, the nude remained a site of reinvention, from the fragmented forms of cubism to the feminist reclamation of the female body. Contemporary practices continue to interrogate its cultural weight, blending historical legacies with new narratives of identity and power.